let's say we bring on somebody who is a high potential individual, especially if we bring them on at the executive level. We found them, we onboarded them, now we have a bigger problem. What's that? Not maintaining, retaining, and keeping them motivated. We want to keep their short sword sharp. We want to make sure we didn't just bring on a high potential person and then they get bored and they mail it in and they cash their paycheck and they wait for another opportunity and go. So Kate mentioned it this morning, and I gave her a quick, hey, thanks, on her way out. If you flip back to the first page just for a moment, referencing Daniel Pink's research, I can tell you that I've read the majority of the books that she recommended this morning. Go get them all. And I'm a big enough nerd that I've got 2 bookshelves in my office. If you have other topics or other books that you want, shoot me an email, ask me. We can have our own little book club. I'd be happy to talk to you about them. It's kind of what I do. But Daniel Pink's research, which he publishes in depth in that book, Drive, is he found that the 3 core motivational factors for high performance individuals are mastery, autonomy, and purpose. High potential people are driven by the effort to master whatever it is that they do. And what's fantastic about that is, do we ever truly master anything? We don't. So the closer we get to mastering somebody, the learning curve levels off, and we have to work even harder for those incremental improvements. And that's really what separates the high potential from everybody else. Autonomy, now they know they have to earn it, but high potential people typically say, leave me alone, bless you, let me see if I can work this out. And then purpose. When you look at purpose, Paul Jack's research goes even further, and he established that when people feel like they're doing purpose-driven work with trusted teams, their brains release oxytocin, and they get happy. They literally become happier at work because they're doing purpose-driven work that challenges them with people that they trust. Say, okay, Mike, that sounds fun. How am I going to identify what motivates people so I can work hard to keep them motivated once I sign them up? Well, there's a couple questions you could simply ask them. There's probably no harm in saying, hey, so what motivates you? Hey, how do you prefer to be motivated? You can ask them those questions. Yeah. Now, depending on your relationship with them in the context, you might get the truth. Or you might get whatever their interview coach or executive coach told them they were supposed to say when they get asked that question. So if we wanted to ask a question to really get between their ears and really begin to understand what drives that individual, anybody have a question they might like to ask to see what motivates somebody? Anybody say, Mike, I'm willing to bet you've got a slide, and on that slide is probably a couple questions. Do you want to share them with us?
What's your biggest fear?
Okay, I like that. Thank you. What was your biggest fear? Because we know fear can be a motivator for people. My biggest fear is I'm supposed to give a presentation and I've got the date wrong in my calendar and I don't show up. That's my biggest fear. One of them. Heights and snakes. What else? Definitely snakes.
How would you motivate someone else?
I love that question. How would you motivate somebody else? In fact, I've got a small tweak to that coming up on the slide, I promise. Remember, when people are under stress, they go to what they know. And a lot of times when we have to motivate somebody, especially at work, it's because something's not going the way it's supposed to and we're feeling stress about it. So if we ask people how they motivate others, there's a strong likelihood that how they motivate others is how they prefer to be motivated because it is what they know. Great question. So here are the ones that we like to ask. The first one, when was the last time you felt discouraged and somebody motivated you to push through till the end? For me, until the end is one of the most important parts in this question. I don't just want to know that they were motivated to finish the email and go home and hope this problem goes away on its own. I mean motivated till the end of the task. Now I know in this question it doesn't say how did they motivate you. That's the point. When I say when was the last time, I want their untainted narrative. I want them to tell me as much about it as possible. And whatever details they don't include, I can go back and ask after. Bring the interview to you. Don't go chasing it down. When we ask too many questions, we end up pushing people away. Questions can be perceived as invitations or attacks. And the more they're perceived as attacks, the more people will shut down. A lot of times when we craft our question, there's a very important consideration. Are we crafting our questions based on the question we think we need to ask? Or are we crafting the question based on the information we believe we need to obtain? There's a big difference between the two. If we craft questions based on what we think we need to ask, we're probably going to ask suboptimal questions. If we ask questions based on the information we believe we need to obtain, there's a significant likelihood that we will improve the questions we ask, the order we ask them, how we make the person we're questioning feel, and the amount of information we get. If you don't love this one, try this one. Who has pushed your development the furthest? Anybody here have a mentor you don't like to brag about? Who's pushed your development the furthest? You know they're going to smile, their eyes are going to get wide, they're going to sit up in their seat, and they're going to brag about this mentor. And when they do, they're going to tell you all about how they like to be motivated. And if they don't, one or two simple follow-up questions should get you there. If those two still aren't doing it for you, try this one. What's the hardest you've ever worked to motivate another person? And that's just a small tweak to the question you asked. Instead of how do, I want a specific incident. Maybe some other time we can talk about how to evaluate nonverbal and verbal conversation for signs of comfort and discomfort during any conversation. But if I ask for a very specific incident, the ability for me to accurately evaluate their cognitive process and answer is an entirely different situation. And then finally, when was the last time you used a technique that motivates you to motivate somebody else? Those are my 4 favorite questions to try to identify how somebody else is motivated.